and we can let them know how they can grow and we can increase their productivity. Thank you, sir. Please start.
Thank you, Shravani.
Thank you, sir.
On behalf of National Productivity Council, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to my old friend and anchor, Mr. Karan Butalia, who has had an experience of almost 3 decades in the banking sectors. And otherwise also he's a very, very keen MSME developer. With us, we have got another, old banker with us, Mr. Ajay Kayas, having the similar experience about the banking sector. And whenever we talk about banking sector, whenever we talk about industry in India, we generally talk about MSME. Although we work on that or not, that is not necessary, but we always have MSME in our mind. Right from the year 1954, after this office of DC MSME, Development Commissioner, Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises, the then Development Commissioner, Small Scale Industry, was established. It has been the endeavor of the Government of India to go for industrialization through MSME sector. We have had various experiences and experiments which we did, and today we are here at this juncture when pandemic has affected all of us in a very, very different manner. So far I am concerned, I have also spent almost 2/3 of my career of 35 years in industry and almost half of my career in MSME sector. Perhaps that is a advantage for me to understand how MSME behaves and what all we have to do. First of all, I would like to, tell our participants that, banking sector, they thrive only on giving loans. They are not here to make deposits. And they will make profits, they will make surpluses only when they are able to disburse loans. At present, how much they are able to do, you understand, is very, very low. And I understand that they are sitting on a pile of cash, which they need to offload to the MSME sector. So far MSME sector is concerned, I need not emphasize that they are the engine of the growth. They are the engine of employment. And whenever we are talking about employment, industrialization, that is the MSME sector which can only come to our rescue. So I will not take much time about this, but I can only say that National Productivity Council is committed to enhance the productivity of all the sectors, man, machine, and organization. We are in the sector, in this area, space for the last 62 years, perhaps one of the oldest. And our, work includes everything about the productivity enhancement, whether it is man management, whether it is energy audit, whether it is environment management, whether it is soft load development, whatever you say, we are here to help you out. So good morning once again to all our participants. Now I give the floor to my old colleague, Mr. Karan Butalia. Thank you very much. All the best.
Namaskar. Firstly, am I audible? Right. Thank you. Thank you for those very kind words, Arunji. You've always been kind and magnanimous in your praise. So thank you again. And welcome everybody. Namaskar to everybody and happy Independence Day. Maybe one day late, but through MSME, I can say towards what is called economic independence and the criticality of MSMEs, of course, Arunji has just explained. So I'll come right straight away to what we are going to be talking about today. And I see we have a very mixed audience. So let me just explain what we are going to do. Broadly, we'll be having 3 sessions. The first session will be on, and all these will, of course, be with reference to MSMEs. So the first session will be on management of finance for MSMEs from a banking perspective. The second session, Arunji and my dear participants, will be on the latest trends towards what is happening in the lending and borrowing space in the country and why it is happening. And the third, of course, will be we will give you a snapshot of the government support ecosystem for MSMEs. And why I say we'll give you a snapshot, because the support system is large. So we have tried to take out the best of the schemes, best of the ideas, so that my budding entrepreneurs here, my existing entrepreneurs here, people who are advisors to MSMEs, and I dare say my teachers and professors who are, of course, much better at what I'm going to be talking about. But for them also, we will have at least maybe 1 or 2 takeaways, which comes from let's say between Ajay and me, we have about 66 years of banking experience. So we shall be giving you some tips on how to deal with lenders, what are the common mistakes or common errors MSMEs usually make. So broadly, these are the 3 sessions. So before we go to the ecosystem, there are 2 important sessions. Now I'll start with the first. It's a kind of a warm up, and I'm going to be talking about this. I will just be sharing a slide here, and I will not be reading out from the slide. You'll appreciate that. I'll just be speaking on it. Just 1 minute, please. I hope my slide is clear to everybody. So as you can see, this is slide clear? Please? Can somebody indicate? Shravani, is the slide clear? Okay, I'll start right away. Like I said, this is a little bit of a warm-up session. Sorry, yeah, we are okay now. So we are talking about the management of finance, and initially we will go through a little bit of the formal concept. It is often said financial management is the key to start and successfully run an enterprise. Very homely, very normal. I'd like you to, all of you to look at the point of, everybody says it is a key to successfully run an enterprise. We often miss the word start. In our exuberance, when we are starting a business, in our exuberance, in our optimism, and in our rush of things, that MSMEs and entrepreneurs especially do not pay adequate attention to the financial management of arranging of the finance, which is a key. So simply said, that if we start an enterprise with organizing finance, which will turn out to be extremely expensive, we are already setting us up for failure. So like I said, it is important both as a key to start and successfully run an enterprise. So first point being, at an enterprise, it is extremely important for all entrepreneurs to please scan the entire financial environment and landscape and have a look at what is the best way to finance your enterprise. Like I said, I will not be reading out. This is just a warm up. If you can take a minute to read this. The most interesting point in this slide is, in fact, what I think is the last. Financial management or management of finance inculcates in the employees a habit of proper management. So if you're working in an enterprise where your boss management is very strict about financial propriety, I'm sure ultimately it kind of seeps into you. So again, a little formal part of this. So financial management is concerned with raising, allocating, managing financial resources to ensure that you have adequate funds availability at times and optimum utilization. Optimum utilization, because finance has a lot of competing requirements, and especially in a business. These are the 4 scopes of financial management: investment decisions, financial decisions, dividend decisions, and working capital decisions. Please bear with me. This is a little formality, a little warm up before we go to what we are actually. I hope we've been through this. If we have to, if we are going to run a tight ship in finance, we need to have some tools. And basically, financial statements are tools to running a tight ship. We're going to talk about 3. We're going to talk about 3 financial statements. And as you can see on your screen, first and the most important is the cash flow statement. This is especially with reference to MSMEs, and we'll explain this is so. Cash flow statement, as you can read, and as I think most of you will know, is a statement which lists the sources of cash inflows and the uses of cash inflows in routine business operations, as well as from investing and financing activities. It allows you for planning of sales, etc., and all those things. And so cash inflows comes from cash inflows from operating activities, inflows and outflows, cash inflows and outflows from investing activities, and cash inflows and outflows from financing activities. We will not go into the making of a cash flow statement. Take you quickly through 4, which will tell you what the cash flows are from all these activities. So as said, this is operating activity. Cash flows come from operating activities. Financing activities and investing activities. So from operating activities, what are the uses of, how cash flows out? This is because you pay taxes, you pay your operating expenses, you purchase inventories, you pay your salaries to your employees and other benefits. There are cash inflows from operating activities, the usual business as usual activities. These are from proceeds from sales of goods and services. Sometimes it comes from some fees and commission. This is how the inflows come. From investing activities, not really relevant for MSMEs, but it's a good thing to know. Where do my receipts come from? Sometimes and rarely, I sell some property, plant equipment. I have some long-term investments where the money is realized. I get some interest and dividend. Like I said, maybe not for MSMEs, but for generically speaking, this is where your money comes in from investing activities. And where does my money go out, which is a common thing? I purchase property, plant equipment, and other non-current investments. Financing activities, where does my money come in from? I redeem shares. I have redemption of long-term debts, payment of dividends. Then where does my, I think I said the opposite. Where does my money come in from? I issue shares. Now, in context of a MSME enterprise, which is a proprietorship or maybe a partnership, issuance of shares would be equivalent of, say, I have a partner who brings his share of the capital. So that's incoming money coming in from financing activities. For a larger organization, this is issuance of debt and bonds. And the main source of cash coming in is, of course, procurement of loans. How do I pay out? I pay out dividend and interest, redemption of long-term debts, and redemption of shares. That is, if I want a partner or somebody to move out of my business, I have to pay him out. This is just a repetition of where my cash comes in and goes out. Now, having said this, like I said, we are not going to be going into the making of a cash flow statement, but something which is very relevant to MSMEs, that is the projection of cash flows at a very simple level. So how do we, Having some trouble here. Excuse me, just a minute. Anyway, and this is extremely important. And why I'm saying this is extremely important, that in my experience throughout dealing with MSMEs, I have found that this very simple thing is often ignored. It is not that it is not done. It is done by MSMEs. People, they have an idea of what the money is coming in and money is going out, but it is not done on a regular basis. So we'll just go through it on a quick basis. So let's start with some so I find out what cash I have in the beginning. I have cash in hand and in the bank, or I find out from my previous year's income, deduct my previous year's expenses, and I come to my present cash. Next, I predict how much cash will come to me during the business, mainly because of my operations. This includes revenue, sales which have been made on credit, which I'll be realizing, loans I might be picking up, and then I also look at forecast my future cash based on trends. Now, or if you have seasonal sales, which is often the case in a country like India, you got to factor in all this. Then I estimate my expenses for the next period, and I look at things like raw material and insurance and other bills. And simple, I know it's very simple, it's very obvious to most of you. I actually get my cash flows from my estimated income to my estimated expense. So that is what cash I will have at the end of a particular period. Ideally, I would suggest to people who are in the MSME business to do this cash flow projection on a quarterly basis. A quarter would be an ideal time period. It's not too long, it's not too short, and you have, especially the entrepreneur, has a fairly good idea. But I would really emphasize once again that this should be done absolutely regularly. I will show you the sample of a very simple cash flow thing. I picked it from the internet, so you can also look at many examples of this. So this is somebody's cash flow. Cash at the start of the month, let's say January. Collections, loans, cash going, free rent, wage, utilities, whatever payments. As you can see in this sequence, this person realizes that by the end of July, he or she will be out of cash by $2,900 or rupees or whatever it is. This is precisely the point I'm trying to make, that if you have a 3-monthly or a 6-monthly view, in this case is a 6-monthly view, you will know. Now, what is the criticality of doing this? The criticality of doing this is to buy time. If 3 months down the line, I know that I'm going to be running out of cash, it gives me time to look for the best source of finance. It could be anything. The point please, I am emphasizing that it gives you time to arrange for the best source of finance. And we are talking of management of finance. So one of the things is to get the cheapest and the best source. It is a policy of no surprises. If I'm not going to be surprised, I know I will scan the entire borrowing landscape. I will end up in choosing the best possible bridge finance, so to say, to cover up my shortfall. That is the limited point I'm making here, that making a cash flow projection, a decent one, takes little effort. But what it helps you, or what it helps the MSME units, is that they don't have any surprises and they get time to arrange for those funds. Otherwise, what happens? At the right of the moment, you will have a lot of people giving you money at rates which you will, possibly you'll not be able to withstand, and it will really upset your entire cash budgeting. So this is the limited point of the cash projection statement which I'm making here. Better than most of us here, most of my colleague. The other two statements are the balance sheet and the profit and loss statement. The balance sheet is a synopsis or a snapshot of what you own, what you owe, and what you personally have as a as a owner or a shareholder. Incidentally, here also lies a very important point for MSMEs, and I'd like you to pay attention to this. So assets is something what the business owes. Equity is something which the business owes to its owners. So if I don't talk about the very small enterprises, artisans, and craftsmen, and very small enterprises, the slightly larger enterprises, let's say people, organizations with having a turnover of maybe upwards of 20 lakhs, 30 lakhs, this is a very common error that they do not differentiate. And this is our experience in banking. They do not differentiate between business money and their own money. You'll say that it's their own money. Yes, it is. In a way, it is. But if you have to do good financial management, if you have to be very careful of finance, you have to bucket. An entrepreneur has to bucket what is the money required for business, what is the money required for his own thing, how much money he's going to take out, how much money he's going to flow back. I have often seen, and believe me, I have often seen cases where, when there are large expenditures, especially in sole proprietorships or partnerships, money is taken out, large expenditures coming, like even marriages of children. Yes, it's a very important life cycle event. A lot of money is spent on it in this country, which is okay. It's a cultural thing. But the point is, if a marriage is coming up and it, usually we know it a long time ahead, it is best to plan and not think that my business money is actually mine and take it out. It has often happened, I'm repeating, it has often happened that because of these kind of usages of the business money, a lot of business have run into trouble. I would like you to pay attention to the next. This is a sample balance sheet. Please take a minute to go through it. Like I said, all of you are very familiar with this, but I'd like you to particularly pay attention to what are called, classified below as current liabilities and current assets. The definition of both current is that something liabilities which we have to pay in less than a year, and assets which are converted to cash in less than a year. And a year is an arbitrary kind of a thing which has evolved over so many, maybe a century or so. But I'd like you to important part of upcoming, just coming back, this is the income statement, also known as a profit and loss statement. Again, pretty sure all of you know it very well. What is the business earned over a period? What is the cost it has incurred? And what is the net profit or loss? This is a sample of a very simple profit and loss statement. We start with sales. We reduce sales discounts or commissions. We come to net sales. We reduce cost of goods sold. Cost of goods sold is opening stock plus stock purchases less closing stock. This equals gross profit less expenses. We come to net profit. So it's a very simple representation of profit and loss statement. Why we have touched upon these three statements clear? The cash flow projection statement, I have made a point there. Regarding balance sheet and profit and loss, of course, these are control statements and absolutely imperative for good finance requirement, financial management requirement. Taking on from what we saw in the balance sheet, the current assets and the current liabilities, now we come to, especially for manufacturing units and also so for service industry, the work which consumes the maximum financial bandwidth, because it is to do with your business, it is to do with your operations. So you would have heard of this movie called Qayamat se Qayamat Tak. I always call the working capital cycle cash se cash tak. So I will run through it because there are some points we want to make here from what we have learned over our years in banking. So you start with cash, however you are arranged for cash. You put your raw material in the production process. There is some work in process. It ends up with finished goods. Or we sell on cash. When we realize the cash of credit sale, we have cash back. So this is all the working capital cycle. Very simply put here, and this is actually, this is what it is. While it is simple, like I said, it absorbs the maximum bandwidth of a business, the financial bandwidth. And here are each of these steps, each of these stages of working capital finance are actually critical for the management of finance. Let me take an extreme example. Suppose you buy all your raw material on, let's say, a 3-month credit. Like your supplier says, okay, pay me after 3 months. Say your working capital cycle is 2.5 months. Okay, it's an extreme example. So you buy 100 rupees of raw material, you convert it into goods, you sell it, and you realize cash, which is worth 200. Let's say you reduce expenses of 50 rupees, so you make a profit of 50. Ideally speaking, you have no requirement for working capital because everything which has been done has been financed by your supplier. Now, this is an extreme case, but a very important point to be made here, because this is a stage which tells you that, well, depends on what level of business you are, what stage of business you are, how much you have scanned your entire supplier environment. You should emphasize on the best terms for raw material. It's a very obvious thing, but it doesn't always happen. See, everything which we are talking about, all of you know, but point I'm making is that it always doesn't happen. Then we come to conversion of raw material into finished good, which is called the work in progress. While strictly not a financial stage, it is extremely important for my, and again I'm saying my budding entrepreneurs, new ones and who are in business, to do a comparison with your nearest and best competitor in terms of his production cycle of a similar good. It is always a must that you benchmark this. It's often not done, because we might not have the time, we might not have the bandwidth, and this point we'll come to later. Well, finished goods or inventory is something, again, we have to look at. Is my inventory moving slowly? Is it moving too fast? Sometimes it moves too fast for my production cycle to catch up. And this is also always in comparison either to my previous year's production, which I can compare, or then of course we come to one of the biggest friction points, sales. And MSMEs face a lot of issues in credit sales. So either I do cash sales where I give a discount, or I do credit sales. Now, as a thumb rule, I'm sure all entrepreneurs will do a cost benefit. But how it has to be done is you have to see that the cash discount you're offering, is it more than what you will be paying as interest if you do credit sales, in terms of, and are your credit sales being realized? So to just belabor this point, since your working capital cycle consumes your maximum financial bandwidth, I would request all my friends from the MSME, whether as advisors or as people who are working there, or as who are running business, to pay particular attention to the working capital cycle and keep a very keen eagle eye on this. See, again, small disclaimer, I'm not here how to teach you business, but this is what we have seen, and that during our banking experience, we've seen this is precisely where a lot of businesses are lax, and we cannot afford this laxity. This is how a banker would look at this, and given some time, I'm sure you yourself or some banker would be able to advise you on where you can tighten the control on this. There are various ways of calculating working capital. These are given here. Please go through it for half a minute, and then I will talk about actually relevant for MSMEs. In the early 80s and maybe late 70s, two committees were set up by the government of India called the Tandon and Chore Committee on working capital finance, and they gave some suggestions. However, for MSMEs, what is critical and to know is that banks for MSMEs with working capital limit up to 5 crores give limits based on the turnover method. On your projected turnover, they give 25% as working capital, which assumes a 3-month working capital cycle, which may be correct or may be longer, but banks a base. Out of this 25%, 5% of this entire thing has to be brought in by you as a margin. Also a cash budget method, which is usually for seasonal industries, and to fill in the gap, something called a working capital term loan is given. But to stick to the point, essentially it is based on your turnover, and turnover, of course, which is realistic, and that is for bankers to find out. We'll move. Again, a term loan is a facility given to borrowers for building of long-term assets. So it is for a fixed amount, fixed tenure, depending on what kind of rate of interest, and EMIs or fixed repayment. It is used to finance capital like land, maybe not land, at least building and equipment and other things. Here, I must say that when you are going in for a borrowing of a term loan, the scrutiny done by the bank is far more than when there is only a requirement of a working capital. Far more. Naturally, जब बहुत दूर का अगर आप ले रहे हैं तो बैंकर भी दूर का ही देखेगा और मैग्नीफाइंग ग्लास से आपके सारे स्टेटमेंट्स को देखेगा. So he will look at your projected financial statements if you are an existing unit. He will look at your previous 3 years records, look at something called debt service coverage ratio, break-even points, margin, and lastly, collateral. And this is a touchy point, which we will talk about in detail later, whether you have collateral to offer. But the point I'm trying to make again here is that you need to be more precise when you are going in for a term loan. Not that you should not be precise in your working capital. Is far, far more, microscopic. Like I said, this is not an academic class. There are many ratios which can be derived from these financial statements. And these ratios actually are not absolute. These ratios are always in relation to either the industry or to the nearest competitor. And they have to be compared intertemporally over a period. I would say from a banker's perspective, and from your perspective now, given the change environment and given what country regarding NPAs, we can, that the rules are getting much strict. One thing I would always want to avoid is becoming an NPA in any bank. It makes life difficult for that entrepreneur for the rest of his, business life. So one of the very important ratios which you must keep in mind is your debt service coverage ratio. And the formula is given here. We will take it up separately, but all it tells is that how much of your net operating income covers your total debt service. So if your total debt service, I would say, is the term loan installment, is the term loan interest, and is the CC interest, let's say this is 10 rupees, and if your net operating income is, say, 30 rupees, the debt service coverage says that you can cover up to 3 times of your total debt, which is a very safe position to be in. The moment it reduces and comes down, there are warning bells for you that you are going wrong, and your business will surely turn into an NPA, and the ears and of the bankers all cock up. Of course, there is another ratio, current, you are aware about. We had talked about current assets and current liabilities. That theoretically it says, if you have to repay your business today, how much current assets you have which you can convert into cash and pay your current liabilities. In my experience, ladies and gentlemen, this is a very theoretical ratio, because if you have to sell away your current assets and current liabilities, you are actually, your business is over. To pay your current liability, your business is over. But theoretically, from the lender's perspective, it is a ratio which they see. And the prescribed ratio, I think 1.33, I'm missing that out, do pardon me. Now coming to again to the working capital cycle, where I said is financial band, very strict watch on it. There are 2 ratios which need to be really tracked very well. One is the inventory turnover ratio, which is cost of goods sold over your average inventory. Either compare it with your industry norms or with your nearest competitor, and see how you are doing. Compare it intertemporally if you're in an existing business to see how your inventory is moving. It will give you a very significant idea of whether you are managing your sales well, managing your inventory well, how much is being locked up in your in your inventory. Then, of course, we had mentioned this earlier. Also, your trade receivable turnover ratio. It tells you of your net credit sales, what are your average trade receivables? Are you speeding up your collections? Are they slowing down? Are you changing the terms? Is it to your disadvantage? And further, so many analytics can come from that. I don't know if you know, there was not in an MSME, but in a multinational concern, there was a major fraud about 8 years back where they showed debtors it was a multinational company, and to their principals abroad, they show that for the particular products they were producing, the debtors were 3 years. And when asked by their auditors abroad, they said 3 years. They said, yes, it's a standard practice. So, this is a ratio which is often used to mislead people. But anyway, that's a different story. For our purposes, for the purposes of MSME, please keep a close look at ratios. From a banker's perspective also, we are very interested in these two, keep an eye on these two ratios. Yes, somebody tells me current 2:1. Thank you so much. Sorry, I missed that out. Of course, we have what are other ratios called solvency ratio. This is the debt equity ratio. And here, if I remember correctly, it's 1.33:1. This is an ideal ratio. This shows long-term debt to shareholders' funds. SME, it's not very sacrosanct, but yes, the shareholders' funds, your own capital compared to your long-term debt should be, I think, within 2:1 is the ideal thing. But this is also a ratio we in banks we look at, with especially for very large units, not so much for the smaller units. Then we come to something called the profitability ratio, which is your gross profit ratio. This is gross profit to net sales, and net profit ratio, net profit to net sales. Interestingly, one besides comparing profit ratio over 3-4 years intertemporally for your business, it would be very interesting to see the ratio of these two ratios over a couple of years also. What is the ratio of the gross profit ratio to net profit ratio? It also tells you a story. This is another ratio which all entrepreneurs, all people should keep line on. So we mentioned that we must know a little bit of the banking terminology. Banks often talk about fund-based loans and advances, which essentially means cash credit, term loan, overdrafts, and on. And non-fund based are those which are where there is no immediate cash flow. These are like facilities of issuance of bank guarantees, letters of credit. Both kind of facilities are extended to retail and corporate customers by borrowers, by banks. These are three terms which you will hear and which should know. I'm sure a lot of you people know, but in any case, everybody should know. Pledge, as it is defined, you can see what it is. You won't hear much of it nowadays. 30-35 years ago, it used to be a very common thing. And then we have hypothecation. Again, the description is given. If you could take half a minute to read it, please. And the last one in mortgage, it is specifically for immovable property. And immovable property is usually taken by banks and mortgage as collateral. And this is going to be our bugbear, which we are going to talk about in this and the next session. So these are a few of the terms. Now, while dealing with lenders, this is some of the, some essence of our experience, which especially for MSME enterprises, which, when you're dealing with lenders, you should be very acutely aware of. So the MSME entrepreneur or anybody who's going in for borrowing has to be, and when I'm saying it has to be, I have a point to make a little later, has to be on top of his business. He or she must know every aspect of the business. And you'll say, how will I know every aspect? Because you're an entrepreneur, you are supposed to know and you should know. So you should do a thorough research on all the conditions which are available, the government schemes, subsidies, etc. You should be answering three questions. Why am I doing this project? Because I, as a banker, will ask you, why are you doing this business? Why not some other business? Why at this location and why in this industry? So what of it? What is the availability of raw material, trained workers, water, electricity, other things, maintenance? What is the government policy about this thing? And what are the usual terms of business in this? Terms of business being what are the terms of sales, purchases, etc. And where is the market? Where are the buyers? Where are the suppliers? These three things you have to know. Okay, and then of course you should have a project report. You should know about availability of subsidy. Do you have collateral available? Now, another point which we often miss out is that, besides the financials, the non-financials of the industry of yourself are also equally important. So you should have, like you have a CV ready for your job, you should have your entire credentials ready and documented, your background, your education, what you have done, why you are going to the business. Like I said, everything about the industry also. And now this, please note this point, everybody who's here, please deal directly with banks. Try not to through mediators. Often, yes, we take help of chartered accountants and advisors to make project reports, to make balance sheet projections, etc. But in my experience and experience of most bankers, comes and talks directly with the bankers, with the person who's going to take a decision, is often held in respect because he or she knows about the business, and it gives confidence to the lender. Like I said, have minimum some understanding of the terminology, seek clarity on a lot of things: rate of interest, finance charges, legal processing fees, what are the moratorium charges, penalties. But please do it yourself. So I would suggest, please take your chartered accountant along, your health advisor along, but you do the talking. This is and I'm saying it again, it's a very important point. It has please, I insist that you do it. Also, be formally with bankers. If somebody says, please leave your proposal here, always insist on a receipt, on an acknowledgement. Banks have something called a proposal receipt register, which they will give you. You don't have to get, if I may use the word, overawed or kind of bullied by any banker. Please ask for a thing. And also, nowadays, you really don't have to go to a bank. The government has set up two portals, which we are going to talk about. They are portals for disintermediation, means that you really don't have to go physically to a bank. There are portals on which you can upload your some minimum credentials and your statements, and it goes to, I believe, 143 lenders, NBFCs and banks for consideration. Finance. So you want to just sum it up a bit. What is finance for business? So simply put, money or cash is finance for business. How do you get finance? Either you own money or you borrow it. There is a lot of jargon which is there in this financial world. Lot of jargon. Basically, let me tell you, there are only two things. God created it very simple. या आपके पास अपना पैसा है या आप उसको किसी से उधार लेते हो. There is only debt and equity. Okay, rest all is, when somebody talks to you, ask him, straight away ask him that, are you talking of debt? Are you talking of equity? Whatever the jargon, just simplify it and ask him, कि आप क्या बात कर रहे हैं? Is it debt? Is it equity? Do you have to borrow? Are you lending? Whatever. Okay. Of course, finance is made available, like debt and equity we are talking about. And before starting a business also, the first point I made in the first slide, do scan the environment, do please the finance. Then we talked about financial planning. Again, commonsensical. We all know it, but then why do we have to talk about it again and again? Because we miss it out. I miss it out in my daily life. you know, want to be sexist, but he's a house, who are very good at financial management because they know how to separate their, you know, they bucket their finance for different purposes. Remember, I mentioned that please separate your business finance from your personal finance. You have to bucket it. And lastly, how to use finance effectively. You have to ensure the best terms for yourself. Best given the circumstances. I mean, obviously, somebody else will get better terms because of his market power, but best terms for sales, purchases, borrowing, or lending. So there are only four things you have to concentrate on. Only best terms for your sales, best terms for your purchase, best terms for your borrowing, and best terms if you lend. If you look at these four things and you negotiate hard and concentrate hard, I'm sure you will run a very tight ship and not make the common mistakes which all of us make during running a business. So for the present, thank you. I will take a minute's break and come back to the next topic, which is the trends in lending which are taking place in the market. So thank you very much. I will exit now and take 1 minute and join you back. So like they say in the Terminator, I'm back, so I am also back. This is going to be a short talk, and there'll be no presentation in this, but I'm going to make only one limited point, and but a very, very, very important point, considering what all is going on in the lending side nowadays. And this is something which I can say me and all my fellow bankers have experienced over so many years. So let me we mentioned the word mortgage and collateral in the last presentation. Mortgage or collateral, mortgaging of a collateral has become a bugbear around lending. By the way, let me mention that banks don't lend against collateral. You see, that's something which we don't seem to understand. A lot of people don't seem to understand. But the simple is, they keep collateral, but they do not lend against it. To give you an example, if I have a house which is worth 10 crores and I need 10 lakh rupees, if I go to a bank and say, okay, keep this house of 10 crore, give me 10 lakhs, the bank is going to ask you, how are you going to repay? So banks always lend against business, against income, never against collateral. However, for various reasons, evolutionary reasons, collateral has become a bugbear, has become a millstone around the lending scene of this country, especially when it comes to banks. There have been various reasons. All kinds. There have been people who have been doing frauds. There have been banks. So I was in a bank, so I know, unfortunately, people used to get penalized. Staff used to get penalized for making decisions. Now, staff is not soothsayer. 5 years down the line, what happens to a business, one doesn't know. So bank would. So it has evolved. Well, it has evolved, it has problems, and what it has done, unfortunately, is that it has kept away from the business scene a lot of potential entrepreneurs who have to struggle, which may be good, I don't know, that's a judgment you have to take, who have to struggle in the initial 3-4 years before they can reach a stage where they're borrowing for their borrowing. Hello? Am I audible, please? I think there's some problem.
Audible.
Okay, because somebody just sent a message. Okay, anyway. So where was I? Yeah, I was making a point that it has become a bugbear, and it is actually discourages entrepreneurs' experimentation. One reason why banks also ask for collateral, please understand, banks are not in the business of financing risk capital. Just imagine if you want to go and deposit money in a bank, because banks are ultimately lending your money, so they have to be careful. I'm just being, I'm being the devil's advocate here. That if you go to a bank which says, look, all the money I take from you, I will be, lending to new entrepreneurs, to startups, to experimental, businesses, would you actually invest in that bank? I'm sure you won't. So banks, because they have to earn, they have to give back your money along with interest, will take conservative risk. They will not, and traditionally banks don't go in for risk capital. They go in for business financing. So that is another reason why collateral is wanted, because they want to be conservative. They want to be sure they recover your money. But to tell you the truth, before the SARFAESI and before the IBC code, which has been introduced recently, and before the debt recovery tribunals, collateral really didn't make too much of a difference. It was yes, it was a psychological safety, and but it actually slowed down the lending of banks to new entrepreneurs. So tell me, what do you think is the okay, somebody is saying that I turn off video. I'll do that. Okay, I'll do that. Maybe my voice will be better. Is it better now, please? A message would help. Okay, so let me ask you, what is the raw material for a lender, for a bank? Even in the beginning of my career, I thought it was money. A bank has to have money because it lends money. Slowly over a period, I realized that besides money, the more important raw material for a bank, for a lender especially, is information. And what is information? Information is organized data. I was in the banking industry for 33 years. I'm completing 3.5 decades. Let me tell you, and it might sound a little harsh, in unambiguous terms, I'm saying what is a problem then is a problem now. Possibly, and I'm saying possibly, the biggest impediment, obstacle to prudent bank lending has been this funny, inexplicable tendency of Indian MSME business not to capture and document data. In the beginning, I used to struggle when I was a field officer way back in 1986. Today also, I struggle with actual data. And believe me, I'm not exaggerating. Even if I am, it's a problem. Okay. To get clean and consistent data has been always a problem. Somehow it is not captured. In fact, most of the times making profit and loss statements, balance sheet statements are a hindsight. They are reconstructed. I don't know why they should be reconstructed. Yes, 20 years ago, you had to engage a chartered accountant, an accountant, to give him constant, input, so that at the end of sometime with good MSME units, 6 months. But even after the financial closure, it would take 3 months to construct and reconstruct a profit and loss and a balance sheet. And various other things would be done in it. There are various reasons. I know there are not some good reasons, but the point remains that if the bank does not have information, and there is information asymmetry, that is, the owner entrepreneur knows more of some things which the bank doesn't know, you cannot expect banks to lend properly. Now, I am not only talking about financial data, please. I am also talking about data about the production process, data about raw material, data about inventory management, data about my supply chain. It is just not, sorry, I'm exaggerating, but I am saying so. It is because I'm making only one point here, that the information doesn't seem to be there. And it's not my case that all MSMEs don't have it, but it's about having real-time, online, consistently collected and documented data. Let's talk about, a small point here, data collection in a very simple form. We have in MSME, we have production processes. How many MSMEs here, people who are participating, who have dealt with MSMEs, have for every production process or for every process a standard operating procedure, even if it is a 1-pager or a 2-pager? It's not there. That is the kind of, hesitation we have to actually document anything. It could be a cultural reason. We are essentially a very, hello? So somebody sent another message. Anyway, essentially, like as culturally, we are an oral tradition civilization. So probably that could be a reason why data is not documented. But I don't understand why an entrepreneur, why a business cannot document a 1- or 2-page standard operating procedure, say for his imports, or how his exports have to take place, how his steps have to be done. See, obviously the entrepreneur knows everything, but the entrepreneur cannot be there everywhere. If you do, or if the MSMEs makes standard operating procedures, simple ones, you'll be able to delegate better and handle situation. And also when workers leave, it's easy to train new ones. And even if they achieve 60% efficiency of an entrepreneur, good enough. So this is the first point I'm saying. A simple data collection, SOP is also not there. The second point I'm coming back to is that there is a secular change taking place in this world, and you know it, what I'm talking about. There's a catalyst. This catalyst today we can call a digital footprint, or you call it the formalization of the economy. Now you just imagine a picture of a digital highway running all around you. So we have data today. Please pay attention to this. We have data from the GSTN. I'll answer some other questions later. We have data from the GSTN, from the income tax. We have data from fraud registries. We have data from various credit bureaus. We have data from rating agencies, from insurance companies, from utility companies, from banks themselves, from wallets, from aggregators, from platforms like eTrades, from platforms like GEMS, from e-commerce companies. We have data from legal and quasi-legal ecosystem, and this is all around you. So let us, and it's called, and let us also call it the the digital highway. Now, theoretically, and this is happening, that's what I'm saying, you throw in a smart fintech company, a financial technology company, and what do? They kind of plug into this digital highway, and based on their own algorithms, based on their own things which they have which they have thought about, they try to discern 2 things from your entire payment and receipt history, from wherever they can get it. They discern 2 things. One, they want to find out is what is your ability to pay. Yes, these are they actually look at all this and try to figure out what is your ability to pay. And second, they try to find out what is your, more importantly, what is your intent to pay. And you'll say, how is this? Well, let's say about utility companies. If somebody looks at my electricity payments or my telephone bill payments, and he comes to a conclusion, this person generally pays late. So either there's a problem with his ability, or there's a problem with his managing finance, or he's lazy. So simply, Karan Bhutalia will not make a good entrepreneur. If he's not good at his own personal finance and keeping track and paying small bills of 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 rupees, what is he going to do as a business? And believe me, they actually make judgments on this. And there are n number of companies today. I'm not going to talk of any particular one because this is not the forum where I'm going to advertise for any. But there are n number of companies you just have to Google. A question which would have arisen in your mind is that when I'm talking of GSTN data, income tax data, and all that, it is not all available to the public. Not today, definitely, but it will be. Maybe not some very, very confidential, information, but generally speaking, data sharing is increasing. Till about I can say with confidence, till about 10 years ago, banks never used to share data with each other. Now, if you are a borrower, go and try to open a current account in another bank. The first thing he will ask you, do you have a, please self-declare, do you have a borrow account elsewhere? If you have, we cannot open. If you manage to open the current account within 3 months, that account will have to be closed. RBI is so strict, and that is the kind of data sharing which is taking place. So here, I'm making a very harsh statement, ladies and gentlemen, please do excuse me. Who is responsible for this data not, being captured? You can blame other things on so many factors, but here it is solely the responsibility of the MSME unit. They don't do it. I'm sorry, you can't blame anybody else. They cannot blame anybody. And if you're talking about cost, please Google just 3-4 things. Just go on Google and type in what are the best Indian applications, apps to capture inventory data. What are the best Indian apps to capture expense data? What are the best Indian apps to capture production data? You will see N number. And if you do a research yourself, you'll find they're extremely reasonable things. And even if they are slightly unreasonable, you must invest in them, because ultimately MSMEs will, benefit from these. And I can tell you a way of doing this, a very simple way of doing this. Please ask an intern, college intern, pay him some 5,000-10,000 rupees. Tell him these are the conditions. You have to give me an information-based study of these 4 or 5 apps, and download those apps on the smartphones, and you can distribute this information also, some with your production manager, some with your accounts manager. So anyway, I am not belaboring this point anymore. The point I'm simply again making is that data collection is the key, and the lending system is moving away, where these fintech companies, I believe, last I heard, can lend up to 20 lakh rupees without collateral. And that is the point I'm coming to. And they are serving specifically and precisely the segment which was left out by banks, the ones who have a turnover of 10-20 lakhs or need a borrowing of 10-20 lakhs. So ladies and gentlemen, whenever you advise, wherever you're involved in MSMEs, please tell them to formally start capturing data. So that's all from me. Thank you so much. Now I will hand you over to my colleague Ajay Kais, who will take you through the MSME ecosystem.
Good morning to all. Am I audible?
Audible, sir, audible.
Okay. Give me, I'll just take you through the government ecosystem, which gives you an overall perspective of the government organizations which help the MSME in various segments, and the segments which are there where the help is there provided. Just a second, let me just share the presentation. Yeah. Is it visible?
Yes, yes, sir, it is visible.
It is visible. So
Yes, yes, it is.
Yeah. So basically, this is a theoretical part, most of it, and most of you must be knowing it. But then we'll go through the government ecosystem, and just to lay down the objectives, it is what is MSME. Most of you must be knowing, but we'll go through the definition. Legal aspects means the act and registration. Then the support structure. Support structure we have divided into two. One is the government support structure, which is the government machinery or the administrative units at various levels. Second is support areas, which is very critical and very important for the MSME segment. We have taken 4 as of now: financial, technological, marketing, and training, as you can see. Now we come to the criteria of being MSME. As most of you must be knowing, under the Atmanirbhar Bharat, the definition has been changed with effect from 1st of July 2020. That is very recently. Now, there are, you can go through the definition or the the criteria which is there. Old criteria is on the slide above, on the portion above, and the new criteria is on the portion below. The basic difference is are two. One is that the differentiation between the manufacturing and service sector has been done away with. So earlier the investment, there was only one criteria, which was investment criteria. The investment criteria was different for manufacturing and different for service. Now the criteria for manufacturing and service has been unified. And the second change which has been brought is that apart from investment being the criteria, turnover has again has been added as a criteria. So earlier, if you see, micro units were defined with an investment of up to 25 lakhs in manufacturing and 10 lakhs in the service segment. Now the micro units are defined with an investment of 1 crore up to 1 crore and turnover of up to 5 crores. Now, what impact this change in, let us just go into the aspect of impact. The impact or the most important impact of change in definition, as you can see, the amount of investment has gone up for medium from 10 crores to 50 crores. So this will make more units or lot more units which were till now not defined as MSME to come into MSME segment. That is one. So that means the ecosystem of MSME or the number of MSME units will increase multifold. It is very good for the economic development. Second is there will be a reorganization, or you can say there will be the units will get regrouped. So some unit will get from small to micro, some from medium to small. So they will be regrouped. So these are two major impacts which are going to be there due to the definition change. Now we come to the importance. MSMEs, as must be knowing, is very important for the economic growth because of their features. As you can read, their low capital intensity and high potential of job creation. Now, these two things are very important not only for the Indian context, for the global context also. If we go by the latest available data is not there, I'm just enumerating it. If we go by the latest data on MSMEs, 28%, if I'm correct, 28% of the GDP, GDP 28% is to the MSME sector. Whereas if you see the world data, the World Bank report, MSMEs contribute 40% to the world overall GDP. So we have quite a bit of land to cover, or we have to strengthen it further. So MSME, apart from being very important for economic growth, in Indian context, we have two more things. One is that they are very important for the latest government's initiative in Make in India and Atmanirbhar Bharat or similar schemes, right? So for these schemes or these programs to be successful, MSME has an important role to play. Second is that entrepreneurship, the strengthening of entrepreneurship through MSME is very important, because unless entrepreneurship is developed, MSME sector or the kind of MSME growth we are visualizing at all levels, whether it is village, district or state level, will not be there. So that is why MSME is very important for the context of growth in economy. Now, we'll just quickly go through the MSME Act. MSME Act was established in 2006, and it was the first ever legal framework which recognized MSMEs as a separate entity. So MSME enterprises got recognition as a separate entity legally through this MSME Act 2006. And why this act was made, you can just go through it, but I'll just delve it. It is for the development or growth and enhancing the competitiveness. So it is basically from establishment of MSME till the sales part of MSME, the entire journey was to be supported through this act. Now we have two more acts which were established, two more acts and two more organizations which were there. One is Coir Industry Act 1953, second is KVIC 1956. So these two entities were already there for specific industries. Now they are part of the MSME ecosystem now. Let us go to next thing, which is the registration part of the MSME. Registration part of MSME is that this, along with the change in definition, the registration process is also got changed. Now it has been named as Udyam registration. So any enterprise in Hindi is known as Udyam. So now all MSME enterprises will be known as Udyam enterprises. And Udyam registration portal is the only portal through which the registration has to be done. Now this new portal will be available directly also and through the earlier portals, whether it is Udyog, Aadhaar or any other portal. The enterprises registered till this portal is, or this registration process has been changed with effect from 1st of July. The enterprises which are registered up to 30th of June have time till 31st of March 2021 to get registered on this portal. It is important for them to get registered on this portal for a couple of reasons. The most important is that they have to be regrouped as per the new definition. So that is the most important. Secondly, the registrations which they have till 30th of June 2020 will be valid till 31st of March 2021. So this is a new single window facilitation registration through the government portal. We have given the link below just for your convenience. Let's go to the next slide, which is basically features of registration. Now this registration is totally free, totally online, totally paperless, and on self-declaration basis. So you see that it has been simplified to the last mile. So no documentation proof is to be required, only Aadhaar is required. Aadhaar, as you can just go through it, Aadhaar of proprietor is required in partnership firms. Aadhaar of managing partner we do. Similarly, for the companies. Now, this portal is already linked to PAN and GST portals. That is taxation, income tax, and the GST portals to fetch the relevant data. So that is why no documentation is required. The data with regard to investment and turnover will be fetched through directly from the database of these two sites. So anybody who files an income tax return, the data needs to be correctly enumerated out there so that the fetching of the data for grouping under the definition is correct. Now, beyond that, once the registration has been done, there will be a registration number or Udyam registration number, which will be given to the allocated to the unit, MSME unit. Now, MSME unit will get this registration and an online registration certificate. This online registration certificate will also have a dynamic QR code. QR code by scanning QR code, you can through the web portal, you can access the details about enterprise. So it has been made very simple as of now. Now, as regard renewal, no, this is a lifetime kind of a registration certificate. No renewal of this certificate is required. Right? One more thing, as enumerated in the slide, that PAN and GST number with effect from 1st of April 2021 will be mandatory for MSMEs. So there is no intermediary for the registration to the government portal. You have to go register through the government portal itself. Now, how this registration or MSME registration benefits any unit, any MSME unit, is very simple. That once you get registered on MSME unit, you can go through whatever is written. Once you are registered as MSME unit, there are a lot of government schemes, lot of government policies, lot of government subsidies which you can take uh, you can take benefit of, whether it is interest subsidies, whether it is taking soft loans from banks, because all the loans under MSME or given to MSME units come under priority sector. So you get a soft loan. We'll come to various schemes later on. Now, further, the benefits of training, HR, marketing, technology, certifications, they are there. So there are various benefits which a unit can take unless you are registered as MSME. So registration as MSME is very important. Right? I hope everybody has gone through these points. Now, MSME support structure. MSME support structure, first we'll go through the administrative structure. With the just a second. Yeah, with the formation of MSME Act, the MSME Ministry or Ministry of MSME came into existence. Now this ministry, you can just go through, it has two divisions. One is small and medium enterprise, SME, and other is ARI, this is Agro and Rural Industries Division. Now, I can just read for the benefit of all the vision and mission statement that encompasses the entire basis of formation of MSME ministry. That is sustainable development of globally competitive MSME enterprises as an engine of growth for the Indian economy. So basis is development and growth of MSME segment for economy development. Economy is growth. That is the basic vision statement. Mission is accordingly defined to promote growth and development of micro, small, and medium enterprises, including Khadi, village, and coir industries. As we saw that KVIC and coir board are part of the MSME ecosystem, so as to create new enterprise and more employment opportunities. The long-term goal of ministry is to enhance manufacturing base in the country by improving performance of MSMEs through skill and entrepreneurship development. So an emphasis is on development through various kind of support system, whether it is in skill, entrepreneurship development, or enhancing the manufacturing capacity. Functions of ministry are enlisted here. Just read it, go through. They are basically facilitation of support systems in all segments, whether it is marketing, credit, the support system in skill development, or the support system for providing the infrastructure to the clusters. So these are basically the support systems. We'll just go through it. Yeah. Now we come to another important aspect of the administrative setup, which is the organizations attached to the MSME ministry. Now these organizations are very important because they take care of the implementation of policies, programs, subsidy systems, and everything, every support system which is provided to the MSME segment by the government. Now, first one is the National Board of Micro, Small, and Medium Enterprises, which was established along with within the Act of MSME Act 2006. Its basic role is giving advice to the government, and it is basically an audit kind of a organization which reviews the existing policies and programs, recommends the formulation of new policies and programs. So it is a consultancy come and audit thing which checks the ongoing programs and then advises on ongoing and new programs and policies which the government should form. So basically an advisory kind of a board which has been formed. Apart from this, the other organizations, 6 organizations which we are seeing on the screen, They are basically the administrative units on the ground to assist the MSME segment. First one is the most important, which is Development Commissioner's Office. This development, I'll just touch base briefly about them, though it is not there. I'll just touch base briefly. MSME Development Commissioner's Office basically has various training institutes under it, various testing institutes, so various infrastructural institutes under the under its command, which gives the training, which gives the training and improves the infrastructure for the MSME units at the local level, and takes care of policy implementation. KVIC, as is clear from the nomenclature, it basically caters to the khadi and village industries, provides basic infrastructure, provides subsidized raw material, provides subsidized financial assistance. So, that is the basic role of KVIC. Coir board again is specifically for the coir industry, and it was made for growth of coir industry as well as for taking care or improving the living standards of the people who are engaged in coir board. You can very well understand that it was established in 1953. At that time, the living conditions might have been quite different than what they are today. Then comes a very important corporation, which is NSIC, National Small Industries Corporation Limited. This NSIC has very good role, or has a role in all the three segments: financial, marketing, training, which it assists or facilitates for the MSME segment. We'll see in later slides the overall role of NSIC towards the MSME. Next are two training institutes. One is National Institute of MSME, and second is MGIRI, this is Mahatma Gandhi Institute of Rural Industrialization. As the names are, they are training institute, one for overall training, one for rural industrialization. So now we'll into the financial support system. Basically, till now we have seen what is the administrative support system. Now, this is the most important segment, that is the financial support system. We are taking financial support system or financial policies programs as first. They are very important support systems for any MSME to get the financial or the credit lines through various programs and policies and through the banking and financial institute segment. We have touched base a couple of them. There are hundreds of programs otherwise. We have touched base a couple of them, which will give you an overall view where to look for and who are the organizations who can assist in financial support. First one is PMEGP, that is Prime Minister's Employment Generation Program. For this, the nodal agency is KVIC at national state level, and of course at the local level it is DIC, that is district level, and the banks at the base level. So basically, it has got various criteria. You can just go through what is written. We have given the link below, which gives you the PMEGP's guidelines or scheme details. But I'll just mention 2-3 things here. One is that the percentage for general category in urban and rural areas and for special categories in urban and rural areas is different. Then entrepreneurship program, attending entrepreneurship program, which may be of a couple of weeks or couple of days, as the case may be, is very important and is necessary for the entrepreneur to have advantage of PMEGP. Thirdly, people who are establishing unit, manufacturing unit beyond 10 lakh rupees and service unit beyond 5 lakh rupees need to be minimum educated up to 8 standard. So otherwise there is no criteria. Up to 10 lakh and 5 lakh there is no criteria, or person need not be educated person also. So that is the basic important criteria which we should keep in mind. Go to next thing. Next important thing is Credit Guarantee Trust Fund. So this Credit Guarantee Trust Fund has been established by MSME Ministry and SIDBI jointly. Basically, this is a fund which provides guarantee to the lenders, that is banks and financial institutions, up to loans of 100 lakh rupees, that is 1 crore rupees, by providing an additional collateral. But to get this cover, banks need to lend to the MSME sector or MSME segment by way of loans which are collateral free, excepting taking the primary collateral. Primary collateral means your raw material, finished goods, or work in progress. So basically, the operational kind of thing. Otherwise, the if the loans are if the loans are covered through any other scheme or any additional collaterals other than the primary collaterals, then the scheme is not available for the cover. There are very minor or minimal charges, guarantee fee charges, which are charged from 0.75 to 1.5. It is based on various categories and other things. It is provided in the link. That is charged to the lender, but lender has been given freedom to charge it from the MSME unit. Right? So this is an important thing which is there, important fund which is there. Then comes the Interest Subsidy Eligibility Certificate, ISCC. This is only for KVIC registered, we're touch basing KVIC here. This is only for KVIC registered units, right? So KVIC registered units can be issued or can acquire a certification as per the guidelines of the scheme from KVIC, and through this certificate which is issued, they can approach the lender and get a subsidized concessional loan at 4%. I'll just clarify that if a loan is given at say 6% and the certificate is there with the unit will be charged 4% and balance 2%, 6% minus 4%, that is balance 2% will be paid by KVIC or will be compensated by KVIC to the lender. So basically it is a support which is given in the form of subsidy. So this is a direct subsidy kind of a thing because you directly are benefited without initially paying it. Let's come to the next slide. This is Pradhan Mantri, this is Mudra Yojana, PMMY. Mudra loan is the most in thing for a couple of years now. So Mudra is basically micro units development and refinance agency. So basically this agency has been created to refinance the lenders for the loans provided to micro units up to 10 lakh rupees. As you can see, there are 3 types of loans depending upon the amount of loan. Up to 50,000 is called Shishu, up to 50 to 5 lakh rupees is Kishore, and beyond 5 lakh till 10 lakhs is Tarun. So basically this is the delivery channel. The difference between this and other schemes is that this scheme refinances NBFCs also. This scheme refinances microfinance institutions also. So basically all kind of institutions which fund traditionally also and in the present financial ecosystem also to the smaller last mile finance to the smaller or micro units, including the self-help groups or the Rediwalas and all. They are also covered under this refinance scheme. So this is an important thing, and there is a since this is a very scheme funding for the very small units. So there is a of course it is there for all other units, but there is a specific system of grievance redressal also out there. So we have given the link for the benefit for providing all the answers on Mudra scheme. Now we come to another important financial institute of the government, which is SIDBI. SIDBI have couple of schemes which are relevant to the MSMEs at various levels and for various help. The first one is under Make in India, they came out with SIDBI Make in India Soft Loan Fund, which finances MSMEs providing quasi-equity and term loan. So basically, this scheme is for providing quasi-equity and term loan for MSMEs. You can just go through it. The loan size is 10 lakh for equipment finance and 25 lakh for other. The tenure is very long. It is 10 years, and the moratorium also is very long. It is up to 36 months. So this is a major, you can say, support for the MSMEs. Now, since this is a specific scheme under Make in India program, so this caters to, or the scheme's basic focus is on 25 identified sectors under Make in India program. These 25 sectors majorly cover all the visible areas which MSMEs work. So there are very, on the negative list, some industries may be there which are not there. Otherwise, most of the industries or most of the segments are there in these 25 sectors. So this is an important initiative under the Make in India scheme from SIDBI. And SIDBI has a scheme for traders and scheme for equipment finance. The scheme for traders is SMILE, very good name. This is SIDBI's trader finance scheme, which covers all kind of traders, whether you are a wholesaler, you are a dealer, or what kind of trader, you have a small shop. So this covers all kind of traders. The only important criteria is that the unit should be 3 years old, and in last 2 years, there should not be a drop in sales, or even if there is a drop in sales, it should not be more than 10%. So that is an important criteria. Loan is up to 1 crore rupees from 10 lakh rupees. 10 lakh rupees is the minimum loan under this scheme. It is for 60 months period or 5 years period. Right. Moratorium is case-to-case basis. There is not specified moratorium limit out there. Equipment finance, if you see, is for new to bank, it is up to 1 crore, and for others, it is up to 2 crore. Now, this tenure is 2 to 5 years. Rate of interest up to 10% from 9.25. This keeps on changing at times, but last it was like this. This link gives you SIDBI link gives you details of these 3 products and a couple of other schemes for working capital and project finance. They are there in this link. SIDBI is an important institute which finances MSMEs at various from various schemes it has run. NSIC, as earlier I had explained, supports in all the visible segments, whether it is marketing, finance, or training. So in marketing or in financial segment, it is one of the most important functions of NSIC in financial segment is that it facilitates the credit requirement which you want to take from the bankers. NSIC has undergone or has signed MOUs with almost all the banks in public sector and private sector to facilitate credit facilities to MSMEs. So they give you free advice, or they help you free without any charges in formation of your proposal, submission of your proposal, completion of documentation, follow up with banks. So the complete handholding is there from NSIC. So they can, in a way, they can be your advisors for taking credit facilities from the bank. Now, the other 2 schemes of NSIC take care of direct financing. One is the raw material assistance, other is bill discounting. Both the schemes are for 180 days. Both the schemes require the MSME unit to provide a bank guarantee for availing these 2 facilities. Right. So first one is for raw material purchase, whether it is domestic or international or import of raw material. Second one is bill discounting. There are criteria for bill discounting. It should be for government undertaking, private limited companies, or government departments, right? So they have their own criteria for this, and the link below gives you the details, further details of this. We have given the major details which are required for availing the facility. Now I'll come to the skill development support system, which has been provided through MSME industry and various organizations. The most important is ESDP, that is Entrepreneurship Skill Development Program. As I had explained earlier, that through Development Commissioner's Office or the institutes under Development Commissioner's Office, which are enterprise development or technology centers, this skill development program is run. Right. Further, we have got enterprise facilitation centers. Since these institutes are not available or not there in major part of the country, because our country is very large. So they have come up with enterprise facilitation centers, which have been conceptualized by through a memorandum of understanding with the state governments or local PSUs or other NGOs as per the scheme, which these NGOs or these government departments are called implementing agencies, and they are given support in formalizing the programs, policies, and also in the administrative setup, as also in the establishing the infrastructure. So that support is given to them for providing the training facilities. You can just go through. The scheme has various programs, but the 4 programs are most important, which are enlisted here: Industrial Motivational, Entrepreneurship Awareness Program, Entrepreneurship cum Skill Development Program, Management Development Program. Now, the other institute which we had talked about, which is National Institute of MSME and Mahatma Gandhi Institute and NSIC, KVIC, called both, they are also involved in providing training, basically for entrepreneurship development and skill development. So they are also there. So you can see there are a whole lot of institutes and whole lot of programs which are available at reasonable price or free of cost through various agencies for skill development for the entrepreneurs and their employees. Now we come to the marketing assistance, which is one of the important segment. Since sales part is very important, because we are talking of smaller enterprises which are to the level of village also. So they have limited access to the market except for the local market. So under the procurement and marketing support system, again the nodal agency is Development Commissioner's Office. They are provided various kind of support systems which are to encourage the domestic and international marketing promotion, effective implementation of public procurement policy. Public procurement policy is a policy under which 20% of the entire purchases are to be made through MSMEs by the ministries and the government departments. So this is there. Now, some of you must have heard about the GEMS portal. The GEMS portal is basically a portal wherein an ecosystem has been created for the government department all. Now it is expanding also to purchase online. It is just like a purchasing portal for the government department, wherein MSMEs are also getting registered, and direct sales to the government departments is taking place. So public procurement policy implementation is an important thing, and under public procurement policies, MSMEs are getting an option of selling their produce to the government departments and government institutes. Now we come to that is how the marketing support is. We come to basically other marketing support systems. There are NSIC also supports, and there is next is the international cooperation scheme. I'll just briefly touch upon both of them. You can just go through it in half a minute or so. Basically, these schemes are for participation in international organizing and participation in international exhibitions, trade fairs, etc. So this is an opportunity for MSME segment and MSME organizations to basically organize and participate in various trade fairs and exhibitions, and gives them an exposure to the international market and other domestic markets other than the local markets. Basically, this provides them opportunity and gives them a platform to sell their produce to international market organizations and the domestic market. International cooperation scheme is also similar for organizing the mega international exhibition fairs, international conferences, international seminars, workshops. The support provided is not only for organizing them, but there is a financial support also within this. The financial support is towards organizational expenses, towards the transportation expenses, towards the workshop or summit setup expenses, etc. We have given a link which provides you the details of this. For Choir and KVIC, there are separate marketing initiatives, which are Choir Vikas Yojana. Under Choir Vikas Yojana, it is export market promotion and domestic market promotion. Or MPDA is for Khadi and village market promotion. Now we come to this Spurti scheme. Spurti is basically a scheme for providing the infrastructure support for traditional industries. You can go through the details here. I'll just touch base upon a couple of important aspects. One is that these traditional industries are classified into three. One is Khadi, second is village, third is Choir. So these basic three industries are coming under this Spurti scheme. And this Spurti scheme is basically one of the two parts of Inspire scheme, which is infrastructure support and promotion of industrial and rural enterprise scheme. Second one is the cluster development scheme. So within these two schemes, there are soft interventions, hard intervention, and thematic interventions which are made. You can just go through the amount which can be spent for various types of clusters, which is given there. I'll just briefly touch upon soft interventions. Soft intervention, hard and thematic. Soft are interventions which basically provide, touch base the training part. Hard interventions touch base the infrastructure part, and thematic touch base the information and the training, information and the research and development part. As I told you, cluster development program is basically providing the infrastructure for cluster development at village level or the rural, basically the rural or local level, through the local artisans and local resources. We'll quickly go through the technology upgradation. So technology upgradation, I'll just briefly go through it. Most important is the Z certification, and other certification also. Government provides subsidy for getting other certification also. Z certification is an initiative of MSME Ministry, So this is basically, Z means zero defect and zero effect. This is basically, certification is basically nothing but for improving the quality of the produce. So now we see that basically we see that all these things provide you a support system in all kinds of areas, whether it is financial, whether it is infrastructure, whether it is training, or whether it is the your marketing exercise. Basically, it is taking care of all segments. Right. So I stop here. This timing is also playing out. We have given a lot of sites which you can explore for getting further information on the same. Thank you very much.
Sir, I'll interrupt here because we are running over the time. So we have to just briefly complete the session here. And we have a lot of questions in the queue. So before concluding the session, I request you and Karan sir, please answer some of the questions, because it is not possible right now to answer all the questions. But yes, few of the questions, yes, we can answer, sir. Please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Karan, shall I start?
Yeah, let them.
Yes.
Which is the question they want answered? Karo. Which
Sir,
is the question?
I'll read the question. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sir, Mr. Amit Kumar Mittal from panelist. Which is the government portal to seek finance from bankers?
Yeah, this I'll
is one
answer.
question.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have actually answered privately, but I'll tell you there are two portals. One is called Udyami Mitra. This is a portal of SIDBI, and the other is a 59-minute PSB loan portal. You just have to go to it, and they both are very well-made portals. They will guide you through it. So Udyami Mitra is SIDBI and 59-minute PSB portal. Basically, what they do is when you upload your information, they will either they direct you to some banks or some bank, and these banks will come and show which show interest in your proposal. They will approach you directly, and then you have to take it on from there. Ji.
Okay. Sir, I have another question here. 3 R's of credit: return, repayment, capacity, and risk bearing. But how to improvise on this model?
Okay, so I will go off on the same tangent which I went to earlier. One of the biggest problems in measuring risk is the thing of information asymmetry. Now, information asymmetry means that the entire information of the organization is not available with the lender. And when I talked about in my second presentation all about this digital highway and all the information which is coming, I precisely talked about this, that the more the information comes, more better will be the risk evaluation. So that's how it will evolve. That is my two bit to this question. A very nice question asked by the gentleman.
Another question is, service and product selling together come under which category?
Service and? Hello.
Sorry?
Service and products selling together come under which category? By Mr. Atul Saxena. Yeah.
Service and? I think there is some confusion. Service and service and product selling means probably he is mentioning manufacturing and service sector. So now
Yes,
the definition.
yes, I think yes.
I think so. Unless it is more clarified. So the definition now is
It's not clear, sir.
definition now takes care of service segment and the manufacturing segment as one unit. So basically, when you are going in for registration, whether you are in service or whether you are in manufacturing segment, you have to, there will be only one criteria for micro, small and big.
Okay, sir, thank you. Still, it's almost one, so I think we will not answer more questions here. And I would send all the list of the topics which we will be covering in the series of this session to all the participants. Then we can talk in detail what are the elements and topics related to the financial management, like what are the business model, what are the techniques the entrepreneurs can adopt and go ahead. So we will be sharing the list of the topics with head, and then we will separately answer the questions. So I would like to close the session here, and would like to thank everyone, all the participants who have joined us and listening to us for last 1 hour. And I would like to thank both of the speakers, Ajay sir, Karan sir, and our DG sir also. Thank you, sir. So if anything would like to conclude, sir, please speak. Sir, if you want to.
No, thank you, Shravani. Thank you. I just wanted to thank Butalia ji and Kaz ji from my core of my heart for dwelling upon for so long on this sector. Actually, I wanted to, say at the end that whatever questions you have, you kindly give it to us. We will continue to answer it. And it is our endeavor that you become successful, you become more productive. And please keep looking our, website for upcoming webinars. And I must tell you that you will not be disappointed. We have got a bouquet of webinars which will suit your requirement. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, speaker. Thank you, Shravani. All the best.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Arunji.
sir.
Thank you so much for
Thank
the
you, sir.
invitation.
Thank you.
It was a
Thanks a
pleasure.
lot, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you. And I'll share the slides to participants who are asking for this. Thank you.
Shalini, can you share our email IDs also? Somebody is asked. Can you please share our email IDs?
Yes.
So that we can
Yes,
answer
of course,
questions.
sir. I'll share the email ID. Yes,
Okay.
and I'll share the PPTs also, sir. A lot of people are asking about the PPTs.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.